It's been a back and forth battle between the state of Texas' aggressive initiatives to increase border security and the federal government trying to stop them. Monday, the Supreme Court ruled the federal government remains supreme.
The courts weren't willing to reverse 200 years of immigration policy on this issue.
In a 5-4 decision, the Supreme Court is temporarily allowing Border Patrol agents to cut and remove about 30 miles of razor wire installed by Texas law enforcement along the Rio Grande.
This is a federal power, and although the federal government is not getting a lot of gold stars on this issue, it is still their responsibility.
And this order sets a new standard as to what Texas can do regarding securing the border.
A question in every other case after this is going to be, is our situation like the fence? Is it more like the fence or less like the fence? And the more you can analogize it to a fence, the more likely it is that the reasoning behind this order is what will control that situation. And that's going to be the challenge for lawyers on both sides, is making things appear to be or not be like this particular fence.
Governor Greg Abbott and Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton say they'll continue to fight in court to keep that razor wire up.
Ken Paxton says this is not over. And so he has to decide what is his next step and what is he able to do under these new constraints.
Meanwhile, senators are working on a deal to secure the southern border. They say they're close, but aren't quite finished yet.
We're working hard on a bipartisan basis to try to come up with a piece of legislation that will actually help begin to solve this crisis at the border.
This is a call for vengeance. Welcome to today's show. I know a lot of you are saying, why are you constantly uploading again on YouTube when you said that you wouldn't be uploading on YouTube and then you said you'd be uploading a little bit on YouTube? Well, what can I say other than,
just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in. And by that I mean, all these stories that are out there, I just feel led to share my thoughts on it as somebody who has a pretty good understanding of how this entire psychological system works. And the story I want to cover is one you've probably heard about over and over and over again. Of course, that's done by design. And that is the border. Now, have any of you been down to the border and seen any of the activity of the border? No. But thankfully, we have national television to show us constantly what's going on at the border. Nobody would think that people are being paid to stand there or flood through the border or vice versa. No. It's naturally occurring, of course, and that's not really what's going on. The entire border situation is a psyop that they're building and building and building to the point of civil war, civil unrest, and of course, to be able to blame a boogeyman day in and day out when our country gets attacked. And of course, it will be attacked. It'll be attacked from within. They need something there to be a scapegoat, and that's what the border represents. So let me take us all a step back. Okay, let's take a step back and let's evaluate what's going on. The story now at the border is that we have a standoff between Texas and the state of Texas and the federal government. The seeds have been planted for a long time for civil war. I've covered it, but it's not going to play out the way you imagine it will. It's not going to play out with red and blue states armed up, shooting and killing each other. It's going to play out with division. It's going to play out with herding people into states that they want you to be in. Now, I just was talking on the website about this, and I've talked about it for years in detail, but going even more detail on the website about specifically what my fears are with the division between the states. Because people like us who are aware and awake know what they're trying to do is bait us to go where they want us to go, because they eventually want us to be sitting in honeypots, and that's what's going to happen. And the thing that scares me, of course, is the magic potion of all the variables that are out there. Because if states have mandated potions where you're not even allowed to have electricity, whatever it might be. I mean, that might be extreme, but when they have state mandates that you have to have the magic potion to go to the grocery store, it's going to make life difficult for a lot of us. And of course, having a job, etc., will force us into these red states, where inside of those states we'll almost have to be like outlaws inside of those states trying to pull people out of the Trump psyop. But of course, people will be even more thrilled with Trump because they'll give him a little bit of freedom back. They'll make them think that they're away from all these insane human beings. So those are the things that are happening with the Civil War. Now, I'm talking about the Civil War because what they're doing right here with this standoff is igniting talk from the mainstream media about civil war. And that's what we need to focus our attention on, is the narratives, because all these narratives are deliberately done. The first thing people should say, because this is what occurred, okay, the Supreme Court ruled that Texas cannot do these types of things to prevent illegal immigrants or illegal aliens from crossing the border. Isn't that a curse word now? I don't even know. You say alien, it's offensive. It's so ridiculous. I don't even know what you can and cannot say anymore. But they're trying to prevent them from blocking these people from entering into Texas, right? The federal government saying they're all allowed in. Now, on the overall scheme of mind control, the Democrats are under such mind control that they think that all this stuff with the border is, oh, you're being a nice person. And if you don't let people in, you're racist, right? They're living literally in Pleasantville. They are living in stutopia, not utopia, not dystopia, stutopia, as in stupid. And they believe this stuff. They don't realize how bad this is for the infrastructure in the United States of America. And that's what I'm leading to. Because ultimately what's happening is they're trying to replace the infrastructure. So if you don't know what that means, the way this country's set up, the Supreme Court, the Senate, the House, all this stuff has to tumble. It has to crumble to the ground, and the people have to do it themselves. And then they're going to come in with their New World Order globalist government. Now, what is that? That is an artificial intelligence governance. This is exactly what the World Economic Forum boasts about on their website. This is the stuff they talk about. You don't hear the alt-right media go into deep detail. They let them talk about Klaus Schwab and these people and crack jokes that they're like Dr. Evil and all this stuff because they don't want to go into detail about what they're really trying to do. They're trying to sabotage the system, and they're going to. It's going to work because everybody is blue-pilled. Everybody is buying into this stuff. People who think they're awake are not awake. The TV only shows you what they want to show you because they want to use it as a herding mechanism, a psychosis. You wouldn't even know about the border if they weren't telling you about the border. They're deliberately doing it. It's a division mechanism, and ultimately it's the boogeyman they need to create for civil war and any type of internal attack to blame it on a boogeyman. Because remember, it's our own government attacking us. Nobody will ever get that through their head because when crap happens, when as they say, crap hits the fan, nobody's going to be pointing a finger at our own government because there's boogeymans that are already psychologically implanted in your head for you to think is responsible for power grid shutdowns, cyber attacks, your bank account hitting zero. These are all things that they're doing. Any type of attack from within, buildings blowing up like the 11th day of September, which you can't say that the front way because of the algorithm. So you get the point, right? So the Supreme Court, this is the thing I emphasize people keep their attention on, right? When we talk about Roe v. Wade, right, this is part of how you destroy infrastructure. Roe v. Wade was brought up out of nowhere, okay? Obviously, I'm a Christian. Obviously, I'm pro-life. Obviously, I'm anti the murdering of children, okay? That's pretty clear, right? But nobody was bringing this up, Roe v. Wade, as if there was even a debate being had or there was, it was just quietly overnight, Roe v. Wade got overturned. And that was the beginning of putting the Supreme Court in the spotlight, right? So the Democrats all want the Supreme Court destroyed, right? They're going, we need to destroy the Supreme Court. We need to take down the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is not pro-women. They're taking away women's reproductive rights. That's the mindset of the one side. The other side is like, yeah, Roe v. Wade's murder, we'll take it down. Okay. Then on the flip side, this is what they're doing with every issue. The Supreme Court, for whatever insane reason, nobody's like going, why would they do that? Because they can't think that far. The Supreme Court, who's supposedly very conservative, has decided to rule with the federal government, with the Biden administration, okay, in regards to the Texas border. So now conservatives are in an uproar about the fact that they were allowing illegal immigrants illegally to cross, and our own government's doing nothing about it. Okay, so now conservatives are saying we need to take down the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court's wicked, they're evil, they're stupid, they're corrupt. And you're starting to see why all of the spotlights are being shown on all of these politicians, okay? Because they're all going to be fall guys for the destruction of the infrastructure here. So you flip that mindset, right? You think about how everybody hates the Supreme Court. Everybody hates the House and the Senate. Think of these clowns I've been exposing in the Supreme Court, the House, and the Senate, right? We could talk about Matt Gaetz and all these guys, these actors who literally act in Congress like we're in high school. They go up there, they name call Laura Boebert, then Laura Boebert's at the movies with getting fondled up and fondling someone up at the movie theater. This is all psychologically done by design. It's childlike, and it's deliberately being done childlike. Okay? They are working people's minds to a point where they're actually believing that these stories that they're putting out there are real. They're fabricated. Okay, so then we can look at this and we can say, okay, now everybody's asking for the Supreme Court to come down, and there's news articles out there talking about a civil war, talking about extremists. Here's Vice, which is obviously Vice is absolute liberal poison, but you have to look at the headlines, right? Extremists call for civil war and recession over Texas border ruling. Now, let's take a look at the governor of Texas, okay? Let's take a look at Greg Abbott. Greg Abbott is a puppet. He's a pawn. All the politicians are puppets and pawns, but more so than you think. Everyone's just like, oh, they get told what to do by certain people who give them money and donations, so then they lean in that direction. These people have no real power. These people are literally actors in place. And Abbott is another one of these guys you can find on the World Economic Forum website. How does he get away with being on the World Economic Forum website and still being a hero? Because of the ludicrous acts that they put out in public, busing people to other states. It makes people support these guys, even when there's clearly evidence in front of us that they're not serving us, that they're globalists. Okay, here's a little video clip from Greg Abbott. This is from Cassidy Campbell, who used to be subscribed to my channel. Probably doesn't even know I'm even here anymore. But he does comedy type videos, but he would mix in stuff where he would go and talk to some of these people. And he actually got up to him, asked him about the World Economic Forum. And this guy deflects to the point of, well, listen for yourself.
Okay, I have one question.
Tell me.
Okay. So, the Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum has bragged publicly about infiltrating governments and grooming political leaders. Now, he's for the Great Reset, pushing forward Agenda 2030, complete globalization. Do you denounce the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, and the Great Reset?
Listen, I'm not a globalist. I'm a Texas first, an America first person.
Okay, but do you denounce Klaus Schwab and the Great Reset?
I promote Texas and America.
Okay,
there you
okay.
go. All right.
So he's deflecting there because he can't actually say with a straight face that he isn't, working with the World Economic Forum. He tries to say he's a statist, he's not a globalist, and he's playing his role. So now we're seeing these people like Trump, like Abbott, like DeSantis. They're playing their roles in this civil unrest, okay? They're playing their roles with the things that they're doing, and they're looking at it, people are looking at it from the perspective of it being extremist, terroristic acts in this country by politicians. They don't realize that, as much as the liberals hate Trump, and they look at Trump and they say the government's all messed up, Roe v. Wade, it's all messed up. Well, is it Biden the president and the Roe v. Wade thing? They're like, oh, well, the people in the Supreme Court are the ones who are responsible. Okay, now the people in the Supreme Court are doing an extremely liberal thing, allowing the border to be. It's infrastructure destruction. That's what it's called, okay? So when we hear the globalists meet, and we hear them constantly talking about artificial intelligence infrastructure and governance, you have to remove all infrastructure, okay? All of it. So all the stuff you see that's going on with criminals in cities being allowed to commit crimes and everyone's scratching their head, right? And they're going, well, they can't say anything because they're black, or they can't say anything because they're Democratic voters, or they're Mexican, or, oh, they'll only say something if they're white. This is all psychologically done by design. They're deliberately destroying cities to bring in their smart cities. They're deliberately doing it to destroy the infrastructure that currently exists, because you cannot have a new world order with the United States of America set up the way that it is. Now, we can all go back, okay? We can go back to Obama talking about how the end of the republic has never looked better. This is no longer a republic. They even admit that it's not. It's a democracy, okay? Our rights were taken away from us, and we can all see that because legally our government and big tech and everyone else are allowed to take away our freedom of speech. They want to take away the right to bear arms. This is all strategically done while we all look at each other and fight amongst each other. This is the oldest, I keep saying it, the oldest motto in the book, right? Divide and conquer, order out of chaos. This is what has happened, and this is what we're dealing with. So this whole scenario on the border is a staged scenario. Any other time period, you would never have heard. That's what people need to just start thinking, okay? You would never have heard about stuff at the border. Oh, their mindset is, oh, they're showing us what's going on at the border because it's worse than it's ever been, right? They're gaslighting you every day. The right-wing media is gaslighting how immigrants are coming in the country and dealing drugs, right? Guess who's dealing the drugs in this country? The CIA, okay? The agencies in this government are drug cartels. Hello, they're trafficking cartels, and not just drugs, youngsters too, okay? And that's really where they made their big money, and they continue to do it. And it's not, just in Ukraine, like the alt-right media likes to tell you. It's here in this country, underground, okay? Because there's an entire underground highway system set up underground. So That's the narrative that they give, right? Immigrants are crossing over, they're dealing drugs, people are dying of overdoses, right? We see people in cities, homeless, etc. Okay. On the other side, they tell everybody on the liberal news, oh, the borders, people are crossing, but they're trying to achieve the American dream, and everybody just goes, yeah, let them across. They don't realize that what they're doing is sabotaging the infrastructure of this country, and they're causing a civil war in this country by design. These people on both sides are deliberately doing it. Okay, and they don't want you to realize that this is the problem with the conservative movement, is that they're just as duped as the liberals. They believe in Q. They believe in all these things that have been fed to them right out of the CIA. Q comes right out of the CIA, right out of the CIA's playbook, in fact. Okay, so they're using these types of things to feed to them little bits of truth, because of course some of the stuff they talk about is true with children and the stuff they do, right? But then to put their faith and their hope in the leaders that they tell them are ones that are there to stand by their side and fight against this stuff. And eventually, what does that do? It stops an actual revolution, again, from occurring. So we have this wall situation. We have all these articles about the border standoff. Texas and the federal government are in a border standoff. Okay, so now we're seeing this, right? We're seeing internal state versus federal government. And that's how this is going to continue to play out. There's going to be stories like this. I'm telling you right now, this is how you start the desensitization of it. I could use a small example of these things. If you think about anything in life and how it becomes normalized in our everyday life, at first, everybody is taken aback. They desensitize you to this, and then they continue. They watch the response, and then they continue, right? So we can look at things like I've talked about in the past, the Satanic Temple. The first time they went into a school and did the after-school Satan Club, everybody was pulling their hair out, including me, until I had to pull myself back and realize how psychological operations work and what they were doing it for. Now, of course, that doesn't mean I agree with it and I want it there, but we have to watch how these things happen, right? 5 years later, nobody even cares anymore that the Satanists are in school. It's like, they're in another school, big deal. And it's going to be the same thing with these standoffs between states and the federal government. The conservative states are going to fight back against the federal government, and it's probably going to flip when Trump goes into power. States like California, if Trump's back in power, Trump will try to pretend like he's going to bring back and do things in California, end mandates and all this stuff, and Newsom and these other characters that we've all grown to know. Because another thing that people don't realize is that in the past, you would never know who a governor was in every single state unless you were some type of history buff or history nerd, or you actually were in school and they were teaching you every single governor of every single state. Everybody knows all these characters, from Ted Cruz to Gavin Newsom, right? Whether it's the mayors, like the mayor in New York, right? Hochul in New York, another one. DeSantis, the female that's running, can't think off the top of my head, Nikki Haley, all of them, right? They're getting built up as these beacons of hope, right? So their political parties are investing. The people who follow these political parties are investing in these people. And they're going to stand, okay, depending on who's in as the federal government, they're going to stand against one another, opposed to one another. And eventually this leads to the civil herding that I've talked about for years. Now, why this is important to understand the civil herding and what's going on with this Texas, border standoff, is that you're not going to be free when we're herded away from one another. Everyone out there is going to go, thank God, we don't have to be around this freak stressing up in the libraries. And everybody should agree. We should never even be at that point. That's part of the problem, right? That's why they make this so extreme on both sides, to make people so hateful and sick of one another that you can't talk to somebody who has opposite political ideologies. This is all strategically done for what they're doing, where they get to the point where they say, I can't live among these people anymore. And we're already at that point, right? We're already at that point. So people are going to feel like this is some type of freedom when they start doing the division into the states, right? Whether mandates come back in and they say, well, liberal states are going to make sure you have the magic potion. Well, guess what? Conservative states will say you don't have to have it. And then we'll all be forced into herding into these states. And then they're going to want us to invest in the leaders in these states / separate countries. And you might say, it sounds crazy. They're never going to do that. Okay, Ireland is currently a separate country. There's many countries that are currently in civil wars. Why would we think it's out of the realm of possibility in this country? Okay? Look at all the things that they've done to cause division in this country. Look at all the things that they're doing to pretty much tell you, not only with the state at an impasse, at a standoff with the federal government, you also have movies like Civil War coming out, which I covered a month or two ago, which of course is now removed. which is on the website. But all of these things are showing us where it's going. They show you it. And then all you have to do is step back and read the fine wording and all this stuff. And everybody thinks it's going to look one way, but it's not going to look the way you think. It's not going to be people in trench coats. This is going to look like the Civil War of the past. Okay? With armed civilians fighting armed civilians or whatever the vision is that people think this is going to turn into. This is going to turn into making it unbearable to live in states that are Democrat and unbearable for Democrats to live in states that are Republican. Period. Where you're forced into these states. Now, the conservative states are obviously going to serve as honeypots. They're going to hit them with HARP. They're probably going to hit them with World War III. I wouldn't be surprised. And the liberal states will begin the entire new infrastructure. They will begin the smart city infrastructure, all of that stuff. The AI governance will start there. They're going to take out, trust me, the conservative states are going to be taken out. Those people, nobody in the conservative states, none of the leaders are free of the globalists. They work with the globalists. Okay? The one thing that they've had to prevent from happening is an actual uprising, no pun intended, of civilians. Okay? So obviously everybody is in an uproar about all of the crap going on, including me, with free speech. Okay? So they expect people to be angry and want to fight and do something. That's why they put these people in place. That's why we've never seen so much support for anyone in this country like there is for Donald Trump. And on the other side, we've never seen so much support for a specific party. They'll vote Democrat. Democrats will vote Democrat no matter who they shove out, right? And conservatives will do whatever it takes to get Trump into power because they think he's going to save them from this. And that's why they're baiting the conservatives with all this Christian wording mixed in with all the advertisements, the subtle undertones of Jesus, and the stuff I've covered in the past where they show Trump in court where he's sitting there with the image of Jesus drawn next to him. It's all blasphemy, and it's all very easy to see, okay? And again, you say, well, what are we supposed to do about it? Well, at this point, you got to try to wake people up to it, okay? Because what can I tell you? I'm only one person. You're only one person. There's millions of people who are in the middle of this left-right divide, which is why the alt-right media is so important to the globalists, okay? Ben Shapiro is important to the globalists. Russell Brand, important to the globalists. Alex Jones, important to the globalists. Okay? They'd be taken out if they weren't important. They're part of the mechanism, the herding mechanism. That's why conspiracy has become so trendy. Okay? Because they knew that people would start waking up, especially after the outbreak, that they would need to lead them to the truthers and the conspiracy theorists that they want to lead them to, all under the umbrella of the conservative party and Donald Trump. None of them talking about how the elections are completely fake. Completely fake. What do they say? They say, well, the Democrats rig it. And the Democrats say, well, the Republicans do. What if I told you that none of it was real? Your vote does not count. You ever hear the expression of living in a simulated reality? We're in it. Okay? We're in it. So, yeah, they're like, oh, it's rigged. It's rigged. It's not real. Okay? And if people realize that it's not real, that they've taken total control, we have total, our government has been occupied. And now the job is to destroy the government, but destroy it from within. And who's the people from within who have to destroy it? Not the politicians, the people and the civilians. And they will destroy it because it's all going to play out the way they want it to play out. They're pawning and playing people, or I should say they're playing people like pawns. Okay? They're herding people like cattle. And they're manipulating like we've never seen before with the capabilities they have with technology now. Okay? And all this stuff that they're doing with martyring Trump, it just gained support. They know that. So back to the border situation, okay? This is a perfect thing for them to continue to use to start planting the seeds of state versus federal. State versus federal. That's what they're deliberately doing. And again, what does it do when the Supreme Court comes out and makes a ruling that makes no sense? It makes people want a new government structure. It makes people want a non-organic uprising because this uprising or whatever ends up occurring here is manufactured because they're gaslighting you into it. Okay? What really should occur is the civilians should just not even put emotion into it anymore and just go, hey, you know what? We've had enough. I don't believe any of this is real. I don't believe any of these people were voted in. I see the connections to all these people with globalists and with Freemasonry and all these secret societies. Everyone, left and right, let's all get together and agree, needs to be arrested for treason. All of them. And all the people in all the countries need to do it to their current regimes. And we need to start from scratch, okay? You don't have to be a trillionaire to be the president. You don't have to be a millionaire to be a governor or to get on the ballot because that's not what this is supposed to be. It's supposed to be us, right? We just want to be left alone. That's all civilians want. And these people want the opposite. They literally want to shove their hand up your rear end. And they're already doing that. So I wanted to rant about that, okay, because I know people are wondering what my take is on it. I have so many different takes on it because this is what's occurring. Okay, let's recap. You would never know about the border unless they wanted you to know. Would you have footage of the border? No, you wouldn't. Would you know about it if they didn't tell you it over and over and over again? That's mind control. Okay, so they clearly want us to know about the border, and it's more than a division mechanism. It's a boogeyman mechanism. Okay, because any attack that happens realistically from within our own government, which is rogue, will be blamed by conservatives on the border. Right? Remember the story I covered a couple months ago? There was a supposed bomb in Buffalo, and they were like, it's the border. It's because the borders are weakened. That's the narrative they want out there. Because if you figure it out and you realize that the intel agencies like the CIA, what do you think they're doing day in and day out? They're not looking at, intel, we're watching the Al-Qaeda and they're watching you and me. They're studying you and me. Okay? They're destroying the United States of America from within, and they're doing it in every country around the earth. Abbott is another puppet. All of them are. So if the civilians actually went after, you don't have to go after that. I mean, people hear this and like, that's calling for something violent. No. You arrest people who are guilty of crimes. Treason is a crime. They own the police. They own the military. The civilians would have to risk their lives to get through there, or find good men in the military, if there still are any, and say, look, by all accounts, everybody in here is not put here. There's problems in place. The conservatives love their Republican leaders, the ones who are good on the microphone, the Trumps, the Cruzes, just like the liberals love their Democratic leaders. So we'll never get to that point because they'll protect, Alejandro Cortez or whoever it might be because they love them. They're false idols to them. That's how we're in this predicament. So you need to look at all these stories psychologically and just step back. Because everyone's messaged me like, oh my gosh, about the border. I can't believe these crazy liberal. It's like, do you know what a psyop is? It is more than a psyop. It's a false flag and a psyop, really. Well, the false flag's to come, right, with whatever happens from the border. But it's all manipulation. That's all that this is. And there will be more. And there will be more of this narrative. I'll repeat for you now. Federal government versus independent states, because that's where we're headed. I thank you for being here, everybody. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you as always and your families.